Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. I got a couple of super cool dudes here. Kelley with an EY, right? Mm-hmm. And Joshua Thomas. Tell me a little bit about you guys' selves, just like one sentence each. Like if I said, hey, you get one sentence, because you were just saying you get 45 seconds. So I'm going to give you one sentence.
Ooh. All right. Wow. We are explorers, filmmakers. We make TV shows in rugged, far-flung environments, and we travel a lot.
That's cool. I'll tell everybody how I came to know who you guys were, and then we'll just kind of like backfill. So I was watching, I like to watch documentaries, and I don't even know how, how Amazon and Netflix and stuff, they track our habits. And so Amazon figured out, it's from my viewing habits, sexy dudes in boats. It was weird. And then your video came up. If you guys have a video, it's titled Paddle to Seattle, right?
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Which you were nominated for an Emmy for, I think?
Amazingly, yeah. A couple of dirtbags playing on the woods got nominated for an Emmy.
But you dudes, Josh, I think, you built 2 kayaks, which were beautiful. I'm a carpenter by trade. That's what caught my attention. I think I saw in like one of the opening scenes that Amazon played. I'm like, oh, what are they doing? So you built 2 wooden kayaks, and then you went from, where did you start in Alaska?
Skagway, Alaska, which is the northern end of the Inside Passage.
And then you went all the way down to Seattle, which was how many miles of paddling?
I think it's about 1,200 miles, the route that we took.
99 days, 93 days? How long was it?
I think it was 99 days, yeah. And just living in the tent, everything we had with us to film and live with, we carried.
And that was like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2008.
Okay, which in the context of like film equipment, batteries.
Oh my God.
No GoPros.
Yeah, no GoPros then.
Our waterproof camera was a handy cam that was in like just this big plastic case that we just always had mounted to the top of the kayak. And it was always foggy. Yeah, GoPro would have been nice.
The camera that we were calling, it was basically a GoPro before they were GoPros. And the camera probably weighed 4 pounds, and we had
instead of 4 ounces.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And we had this monopod, which is like a single tripod stick. And because Josh built the boats out of wood, we were able to put fishing rod holders all over the boats, and then jam this monopod into the fishing rod holder, and then put the camera in unique situations, which is basically what you're able to do with the GoPro these days. It would have been a lot easier, but we were kind of adapting. It was a really interesting time in video production because I was working at National Geographic as an intern, and used to be, just 12, 15 years ago, they used those big old heavy cameras, and they still use those, but it was around the time that they were making these cameras that could be accessible for anybody, all the YouTubers that are out there, all the people that are making content now themselves. That came about 12 years ago, right around the time before the GoPro, and they had these little handy cams, and they were HD, and they had a really nice image, and you were actually able to make something that looked just as good as what they had on broadcast. And then people started to edit from home. You didn't need this big software system. People were using Final Cut Pro and then into Premiere. So it just made it so much more accessible. So it was, the right guys at the right time.
And you guys edited all that yourself as well?
We didn't.
You didn't. Okay.
Because we found that because we were in the content, we wanted a third party who was neutral, who actually, if you might have noticed in the film, there's some cuts that would seem embarrassing. We obviously did things a couple times. Like there's a scene where we're walking in downtown Juneau, Alaska, and we set the camera up 200 feet away, and we're wearing wireless microphones, and we're walking across the street in downtown Juneau talking about what it's like to be in downtown Juneau. And we did it many times. And there were some seamless ones where we arrived in Juneau and we talked about this cool place, and then you kick off a montage or whatever. But the editor used a scene where some guy walks across the street, runs into us, asks us where the post office is. We tell him where the post office is. And then we said, well, that was actually a really good tape, except the guy asked us where the post office was. And the editor used that. And I think if we were cutting it ourselves, we would have gotten
that out. Yeah, that's cool. Let's backfill from that. So that's not how you guys met. You're both, let's see, I don't know where you're from, Josh. JJ, you're from Minnesota.
Yep.
Josh, where are you from?
Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. I get to Pennsylvania. I go to Lancaster County twice a year for some work.
That's my neighborhood. That's where my family's at. I live in Alaska now.
Denver, PA. That's where we do a gig a couple times a year.
There's so many towns in Pennsylvania. I grew up there, and I don't know where any of them are.
Yeah. I actually, while I'm there, I'll ask people like, "Hey, where's this town?" And they're like, "I don't know." And I'm like, "It's 2 miles away."
Yeah, never heard of it.
yeah, exactly. So did you grow up in a farm environment?
Yeah.
You got some carpentry skills.
Yeah, I grew up on a little hobby farm, basically, homeschooled until I was in 6th grade. We had goats and chickens and
sounds like my house.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I really value that childhood. Then I went to public school and
learned about cigarettes and girls.
Cigarettes and girls, 2 best things on the planet. Yeah.
That's funny. That's one of my favorite. I travel all over the U.S. Like I was saying to you guys earlier, and that area of central Pennsylvania is probably one of my favorite, most beautiful spots.
Yeah, I dig it. And it's nice because it's close to, I grew up an hour from Philadelphia, 2 hours from New York City. And, backwoods, like we had a dirt road growing up as a kid and, yeah, we had a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And the topography is really special in Pennsylvania as well. We, we'll get to this, I'm sure, but we met hiking the Appalachian Trail. So these old, rugged Appalachian mountains that used to be as big as the Himalayas are now worn down to just their core and their shell. And that just makes Pennsylvania so rugged and hilly, and the topography is pretty gnarly there, and that all these villages and old quaint towns are separated by these hills and forests. Yeah. And it really feels like a throwback that you don't see in a lot of places in the United States, where it's flat and they can put a grid over it and run a highway through it.
Yeah. And there's still a lot of cool old structure that didn't get torn down, old Revolutionary War era buildings and barns and things like that. I dig it. I took my daughter last year during the last class we did out there, and we went and spent a half a day in Gettysburg, which wasn't enough time, but just looking at that and thinking about dudes with muskets climbing through those tick-infested forests. It's thick, heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I mean,
go ahead.
It's the birthplace of our country. That's where the capital was going to be. They were going to have it in PA. So it's like, if you're looking at American history, I mean, that's really where a lot of it starts. And they didn't tear it all down, which I love. Like so many cities around the country. Like I was down in DC last week, and the Southwest DC, like below the Lincoln Monument, they've just completely tore all that down, all those beautiful buildings, and they've just put up these high-end condos and hotels. And in Pennsylvania, they've been able to preserve some of our roots, some of our history, and integrate newer structures. And I just think PA is really cool because of it.
Yeah. It's gritty too. Like there's no doubt Philly, you go to Philly, you get off that airplane, you're like, oh yeah, this smells like Philly. There's the pretzel guy, there's Dunkin' Donuts.
Hey, jerkwad.
Yeah, people calling you a jerk. You're like,
yo, I'm walking here.
It's great.
Yeah, I do dig it. So where'd the carpentry skills come from?
My mom was actually a pretty good carpenter growing up. She would make not complicated furniture, but outdoor furniture. And as kids, she would kind of put us to work with jigsaws and sandpaper. It's just the basic skills there to even have the desire to pick up tools. And then after high school, got a job as kind of a carpenter, painter, do it all kind of dude, and did that for a while off and on, and just mostly just from doing home projects, just out of necessity.
But you must have been okay at it, because when he built the kayaks right before that, he was working down in Antarctica at the U.S. station out there in McMurdo as a carpenter.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him remotely while he was on a satellite phone. And I said, we were planning this paddling trip, this 3-month trip. And I was working as an intern at National Geographic, and my boss, I was showing him this idea for this film that we were going to make. And he was a big time executive producer, and he gave us his thoughts, and he was really cool. And he was into wooden sailboats. And he said, yeah, your pitch looks cool. The story looks cool. I think you're going to see awesome things. I like what you have planned here. But the boats, like, he was big into wooden sailboats. He said, wouldn't it be a lot more interesting if you guys built your own boats and you had, more beautiful vessels that you were paddling? So I called down to Josh in Antarctica, and I was like, what do you think of this idea? You've got this background. Would you be up to build it?
Yeah, and we needed.
How long did it take
kayaks. It was 3 months, and that was Alaska. That was like Alaska springtime, like starting in March. And you got it. You're working with the wood, but most importantly, you're working with this epoxy resin that needs to be minimum 50 degrees Fahrenheit to cure properly. So that was the real challenge of working in a shop that wasn't really heated, and just kind of staging everything for those nice days in the forecast. And sun's out.
So you went from Antarctica, which I didn't hear about that, so you'll have to tell us a little about that. Came all the way to Alaska, the opposite side of the globe.
Yeah.
And went to work building kayaks.
Yeah, pretty much. I got home. Well, I lived in Alaska at that point.
Okay.
So the Antarctica gig was just a one-time thing I did it was a summer down there, winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. And it was just a cool job I fell into. I loved it. Worked at South Pole Station for 3 months as a carpenter, which was just,
what are you building?
Yeah, a lot of times just building crates for shipping like satellites and things like that. We were finishing the South Pole Telescope, which is doing some really cool research right now.
Neat.
And just catering to the scientists down there.
So I had a conversation with a flat earther. And he would tell me that you must be part of the conspiracy because none of us are allowed on Antarctica.
Well, I'm pretty sure I was there. I
can corroborate. I've actually been there as well.
Yeah. You're both part of the conspiracy.
I went down there on a boat with the U.S. Coast Guard, and we cleared open the channel to supply Antarctica.
Sure you did.
I went down on a Hercules and a C-17 with the Air Force. I can tell you, I've been there, and unless it's an elaborate ruse, I feel like I'm a believer. I'm a believer in Antarctica. I'll just say it right now. I think the Earth is round.
I do too.
Whoa.
What months were you down there,
guys? That's edgy stuff right there.
What months were you down there?
October through like into February, and I did McMurdo, but most of my time was at South Pole Station.
Most brutal climate you've ever been in?
No doubt about it. Yeah, certainly the coldest. Minus 30, minus 40 was typical, but the sun's up all the time too, so it's like super bright. You can get a sunburn, but it's still cold.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you guys. Real quick to touch on JJ's background, you grew up in Minnesota. If I remember correctly from my research, you had 6 kids in your high school graduating class.
Good. Wow. I don't know where you found that. Yeah.
I had 3 in mine.
Really?
I had 3.
How'd you do?
I was homeschooled for a bunch of on and off. My dad was a minister, so my mom felt really holy. She'd pull us out of school and teach us from home for a while.
Yeah.
So I go back and forth, and then we went to like a little private Christian school for high school, and I graduated with 2 other kids.
Yeah, that's the exact same thing that I did. We had this thing called the PACE system.
Sure, and you cheated at your own pace was how I
I finished a full year early.
In like a month, right? Yeah, we used those. They were like little, they looked like coloring books almost.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could sit and knock one of those out in no time.
Couple days. You don't want to go too fast where they think like, is this guy playing by the rules, but just fast enough where you can finish way early.
Yeah, those are some life skills you learn there.
Yeah, getting it done, getting by. So
you guys.
What's that?
And now look at you guys. You went through the PACE system, and here we are on a podcast.
There is something I would say to that. So some of my siblings were very upset about their school years of childhood. And my parents are older now. The kids range from late 20s to almost 50. And my parents had 11 kids. And like, I'm okay with it. I learned things like I was a goat milking champion. None of my friends were goat milkers.
Whoa.
I could see it in your forearms.
Whoa. Really?
That never leaves. Those games never leave.
But we did do all kinds of cool stuff. Like and you learn you can learn if you've got the tools there to do it. You can learn to do things like we did, to be creative and And you guys, at some point, your lives converge on the Appalachian Trail. Were you going south to north?
North to south.
North to south. Okay.
Yeah, Maine to Georgia. Yeah.
Okay.
Go in the opposite direction most people go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
so it starts in Maine on what's the mountain? Katahdin?
Katahdin.
Katahdin, and goes south to Georgia. Springer
Yes.
Mountain down
Springer
south.
Mountain. Yep.
You got
A
it.
bunch of my friends, I had babies young. I never got to do it. A bunch of my friends did it. And I remember reading the maps and stuff. So you started up north and like 500 miles in, you two guys, hey, what's up?
Yeah. It was pretty wild. I had done a lot of planning for it. I was, maybe a year out. I knew that I wanted to do this, and I prepared all my own food. I grew up on a goat dairy farm myself. So
you took goat jerky with you, didn't you?
I took some goat jerky.
He wanted to bring a milking goat. He looked into it. They wouldn't let him do it. They're like, nah, you can bring a dog if you want, but no.
So the trail authorities wouldn't let you?
There's certain sections, yeah.
No pack animals. It'd be a pack animal. You can hike the Pacific Crest Trail on the west coast
pack animal.
with a
that
pack
would have
animal.
been cool.
I know, right?
Imagine that, some goat milk lattes in the morning.
Yeah, that would have been really cool. What kind of goat?
Well, I don't know.
We had
Nubians.
Nubians? Okay.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't let you?
No, but I prepared all my own food. I went, I didn't have a lot of money, as a lot of us don't when we're younger. And I needed 6 months worth of food. And my friend was going to hike it, not Josh, this friend of mine who I met up in Alaska. We were going to hike it together. So I said, I'm going to prepare all the food that the two of us need for this 5 or 6 month hiking trip. And I didn't have a lot of money, so I would try to be creative. And I went to the feed mill one day, and I was picking up some oats for the horses. And I thought we were buying we like to take care of our horses and treat them well. So we bought them these organic, whole grain, like free range oats. And I went to the guy at the feed mill and I was like, curious, you're selling this 50-pound bag for only $25. Could a human eat these oats? And he's like, yeah. I mean, in theory, there's no chemicals in there. There's nothing that's going to hurt you.
This is in Minnesota still?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're a little unrefined, so you're going to have the hull in there a bit more, but you could totally eat these. So I laid them out on sheet trays. We raised, we had bees, so I took all the honey from the bees and mixed peanut butter in there, and I put in some like espresso beans that I like hand dipped in chocolate. And so I just made 22 boxes worth of food. I had 3 food dehydrated.
So what were these, like bars, or did you mix them into like a granola?
It was a granola, basically.
Okay.
And then
it was like pemmican without the fat.
Totally. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I would take salmon. I was working up in Alaska before that on a charter fishing boat. So I dehydrated a bunch of salmon and made marinara dehydrated it into a fruit roll-up consistency so it could be reconstituted. This was like before they had those MRE like camping meals. They had MREs, but not like the backpacker pantry and all those
house and all that.
Mountain house. Yeah. So
not to mention so much waste with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So wait, you dried out the fish? Like how do they do that? Like in like Norway and such, where they just hang them and dry them? Is that like what you did?
I just used a smoker.
Okay.
Yeah, that would have been one way to do it. In Minnesota, we didn't get. I mean, I guess it would have been possible, but I just caught a bunch of fish, brought it down frozen, and then ran it on a smoker, and then mixed it in with the marinara and a little bit of olive oil.
How many pounds we talking?
Huh?
How many pounds of fish?
I probably brought back, I don't know, like 30 pounds. Not a crazy amount.
Okay.
But then
This is a lot of work.
Yeah, it was 3 months of work.
Overachiever right here.
Well, I'm just thinking, just like, as a business guy, you could have went and got a job for 3 months.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
I like what you did. It's cool. It's a way cooler story than I worked at Walmart.
Yeah, I did work at a Walmart. I think that the quality of food was way better because I just realized that on our farm, I can get food that's just packed full of nutrients and that's going to be free for me, and I have control over it. A lot of people on the AT, they're conservative about weight, which makes sense. You don't want to be carrying a lot of weight. But some AT thru hikers will eat ramen noodles at the end of their day that they don't even boil.
Garbage.
That's 100 calories. You're burning 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. Like I knew that I did not want to start the trail and be emaciated by the time I was done. That was really important to keep weight or put on weight, because the majority of people, the average person, loses 30 pounds on the AT when
just because they can't get enough calorie-rich food.
Right. So I started hiking.
I was lined up to be that guy that lost 30 pounds. I was hiking by myself, grocery shopping at gas stations and hitchhiking to whatever, eating Pop-Tarts and donuts. And then I met JJ about a month into it, and he was hiking with someone that couldn't do it. She was from Alaska. I think she had asthma issues, and she had to fly back. So he had
she eventually bombed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far is the trail for people listening that don't know?
2,200 miles?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Really far.
It shouldn't be as far as it is. As the crow
But
flies.
it's very zigzaggy.
Exactly. It's only 1,300 miles if you were to fly that distance, but it's 2,200 if you're going to hike it, because it's a celebration of the Appalachian Mountains. So there are times where if your overall direction is south, you might notice looking at the sun that you're hiking north. And it's like, why are we going north right now? It's like, I know why, because we're going to go climb that mountain. And you climb 3,000 foot mountains every day. It's the equivalent, they say, of hiking Mount Everest 16 times from sea level.
Wow.
Hiking that amount of elevation gain.
That's
Because
crazy.
you're just going up and down, up and down.
I had a couple of my buddies. We were probably 21. I was heartbroken. I literally cried when they left my house. I helped them. They took all my gear. We were avid backpackers, but Midwest stuff here in the region. And we had planned this trip, and I got married, had a baby. I couldn't go. So I send them off to the bus station. I drove them to the bus station. I drove home. and literally, I'm not going to, they're like my best friends. I'm not going to see them for 6 months, 8 months. They were going to take their time. 4 days later, ding dong, they're at my door. And I'm like, what's going on? They pushed out 4 days in. They got a bus and came home. I'm like, what the frick? We spent weeks planning this and, help them with food prep and stuff. That was my contribution. 4 days. You mean?
Oh my God.
4 days.
4 days.
Yeah. If they're listening, pussies.
Embarrassing.
There are people that quit on the first day. When you realize that you're going to go on a 6-month hike and you quit the first day.
I almost quit after the first stretch. If you're hiking north to south, is called the 100-mile wilderness. And both of my knees were hurting so bad after that. And I was really close to taking a bus back home.
Then your body began to adapt to the constant load and walking.
Yeah.
Well, he started with an elite trail athlete though, who was off the bat, he's doing 20-mile days through this rugged. Okay. And that probably tore you apart, I would think.
Yeah.
Because I started real slow.
With that.
Yeah. And I was just, it was just, there's nothing else to do but just walk. So you wake up, you're excited about it. You're starting this new thing and you've got 2,000 plus miles ahead of you. You just want to walk and get some miles in, but you're beating yourself up. You really have to pace those first few days and just.
It's a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Huge.
That kind of a thing. I've met all kinds of folks that have done that, or the Pacific Crest Trail, or the Rocky Mountain, or various shorter ones. There's a cool one around part of the Great Lakes that some friends have done. Mm-hmm. Takes a certain kind of individual to want to be with their thoughts like that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a valuable thing to do. I think it was probably even more popular thing to do. 100, 200 years ago, culturally, people have been going on pilgrimages for as long as we can remember. And there's a lot to be said for having that time with your thoughts, being inside your own head. Mm-hmm. And I really value that time. I changed a lot in the course of the 5 months it took to do that.
How old were you guys when you did that?
I was 21.
Okay. So
as old as your friends.
Years.
As old as your friends.
What year was that? Do you remember?
I guess it would have been 2002.
That was probably literally right around the same time. They were down on Springer Mountain pussing out while you guys were up in Maine. A buddy of mine, his name's Joe Cruz. Joe's a little stout guy like this. He's an electrician now, owns an electrical contracting firm up here. Joe powered through. I don't know how many months it took him, but he cut it in a couple months short of what most people do. He just cranked it.
Yeah.
Just knocked it out. Came home with calves like that. And
oh man.
Yeah. He's was a wilderness guide and did all kinds of outdoorsy stuff as a kid. So he was able to sustain himself on less than most people. You know, I don't even know if he had a tent.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he had like a fly and set it up at night and wrap himself up.
You can do that on the Appalachian Trail. They were smart about putting these shelters. They average one every 8 miles. It might not work out perfectly with how you're doing it, but when we were getting to the end, you know, we met about a month and a half into the hike. Or I was a month and a half. He was a month because he was moving a little bit faster. And you know, I had my own tent. He had his own tent, and then we just started paring it down. And you realize if you're not using that every day, then why do you have it? And you quickly start to know exactly where everything is in your bag. It's one of the few times in my life where I've had control over everything that I immediately own, that I knew exactly where all of my possessions were at any given time.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like, who else? I can't say that now. I've got so much junk around my apartment right now. If somebody asked me to find this one specific thing, or if I have this one thing, I'd have to think about it. Back then, you could ask me, do you have this? And I'd be able to say yes or no. Probably I don't, unless you're looking for a water filter. I might have one of those.
What'd you do with the stuff that you offloaded? Sell it? Donate it?
You know, if you ever want to get some cheap gear, go down to Springer Mountain, and there's a little outfitter 20 miles north of the start, and they accept gear. And that's basically, people just dump it off. I mean, I mailed a little bit home.
I actually have, I don't know if you realize, JJ, I have your backpack from the Appalachian Trail.
No way.
Yeah, it's an old Gregory. It's got, you know, it's got multiple zippers, really nice bag. It's got this big Grateful Dead sticker on the back. It's got these like the shoulder braces or whatever you wear it on, you know, the backpack has these pads that were taped onto it. It's pretty gnarly looking. I don't know.
I can't believe you don't have that hanging on the wall in your office or something.
I know. I didn't. Now that I know you have it, I need it back.
I do. I have it. Yeah.
Give me
I don't know how I ended up with it, but I'm like, I never ended up throwing it away. It's just sitting in this tote in my cabin in Alaska. So it's out there. I'm going to sell it someday.
No.
There you go. In need of some dough. Once he gets like an Oscar, you can put that up for sale.
It's taking him forever though.
Get that Oscar.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that humor. Somebody said you guys are like Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd.
Whoa, that's a super high bar. I wouldn't quite say that high, but
they were talking about the comedic, chemistry between you.
Yeah. That's important for us. We started making these adventure films. We made a couple of them, like Paddle to Seattle, around the time that these survival shows were getting really popular. And we were working as wilderness guides. We were kayak guides up in Alaska, and we were in the outdoor industry. We took people out into the wild. We helped them experience it. We took them to remote situations that were dangerous, that had brown bears, that where you are away from a lifeline, where if something bad happens, it could be days before somebody could get out to you. So we were very comfortable in these situations, and it could be really freaky for somebody coming off the couch to go to a place like that. And you have a small window of time where you could either turn them away from that for life, or you could bring them in and let them feel somewhat comfortable and let them grow in that environment. And I think that, you know, I value outdoor spaces. And if we're going to continue to have awesome, pristine outdoor spaces, people need to appreciate the wild, and they're going to appreciate it by understanding it and not being afraid of it. So when we were coming up, we were watching these TV shows where it was like Bear Grylls. So I think Bear Grylls is great. I think what he's done is awesome. But his early show was like, you know, if we don't get out in the next 15 minutes, we're going to die here, mate. We're going to die.
Right.
And it's like,
first I have to drink my piss.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to just zip down my pants right now. And you can drink your urine up to 3 times. And it's like, that's cool TV. But we were like, it doesn't really always have to be like that. Like, what if you could just show the reality? Like, what if you could hype up moments and then just laugh at yourself with how ridiculous it is from time to time? So that was a big component with us. Plus, you're bored. You know, when you're hiking for 8 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours, whatever a day, or kayaking for 9 hours a day, you have a lot of time to explore in your own head. And you could be in a state of suffering where it's miserable, or you could just laugh about it. And I think that's how we deal with stress.
Yeah. So how far into the Appalachian Trail did you guys concoct this plan, or did that come later?
That came later. Then on the trail, JJ was telling me about this place in Alaska that he had worked as a sea kayak guide. And in the back of his mind, he was thinking, you know, I'm going to go back to Alaska. Hey, you should, you know, he was telling me, you should come with me. I think I can get you a job at this outfitter. And that's what happened first. And I went to Alaska that following summer, and I haven't left. I've been there in the same town ever since. You know, that's 15 years ago.
Okay.
And I love
so
it.
you guys are out doing this job, and you're like, hey, it'd be pretty darn cool if we rode these suckers, paddled them all the way to Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to Alaska, developed some skills, and started to really appreciate sea kayaking as a way to explore and tour Alaska, because Alaska's got more coastline than the lower 48 states combined.
Which is
just
insane to think about.
It is insane. There's so much unexplored or inaccessible area that you can't get to unless you have a kayak or something like that.
That's
so
cool.
It was just, it was so much fun to just go paddling. You know, today I'm going to go east. Today I'm going to go west. You know, landing at a different beach, camping somewhere different. It's just like, why not just take these? What if we took kayaks to Seattle? That'd be crazy. What's between here and Seattle, the lower 48 states, you know? Because Alaska's kind of, it feels detached sometimes. It almost feels like its own country. And to connect those dots, it just felt important to see.
Has anybody done that before?
Yeah.
Yeah, people have paddled it.
Yeah, it's been done definitely before. I mean, after hiking the Appalachian Trail, we had these profound experiences where we met with people and they'd invite us into their house and they're like, you come and eat here and hang out with my family. And I have this incredible story. And we just learned all these amazing things and about our own growth and, you know, our own heroes' journeys. And it felt like a shame just to throw that away or keep it to ourselves. And we thought, what if we could do another big trip and just share what we learned with other people? So that's where we got the idea to start carrying video cameras. And, you know,
give me some of those lessons.
What you learn on these trips?
Yeah. Unfortunately, most dudes listening to this that are locked into a 30-year mortgage, 2 car payments, wife, kids getting ready for college, job, gut starting. You know who I'm talking to. Most of those guys do not have the ability to go split for 6 months unless they leave a Dear John letter on the pillow and going out for milk. I'll be back in a minute. You know?
Yeah. The lessons learned. I don't know. Adventure, for lack of a better term, adventure is really important. And sometimes, it's hard to put yourself out there in an uncomfortable situation. And, you know, and the best things, I think about this all the time. I know it's cliche, but I value, you know, the best things in life are really, really are free, I think. And a lot of those times are just, you know, just.
This has been a perfect spot for a hand job joke.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a lot of time out on the trail, you know, pretty lonely at times.
And and when you're out in the wilderness, you can spank it pretty much whenever you want.
There are no rules, you know.
See, that was a legit dovetail into a hand job right there.
Really smooth.
So I'll lead this off with maybe to get you thinking about what I'm trying to drive you towards. So my brother and I got 6 brothers. Tom's one of them. He and I both grew up with like crushing anxiety. From various things, which is a whole nother topic altogether. But we both realized in our own way that like doing things that not just that we were scared of, but that were profound. Like I got involved in various things like public speaking or politics or things that caused me some fear. And he got into things like hang gliding, skydiving, powered parachuting, tower rescue. He just filmed a video. He's a drone operator, and he went back to the guys he taught to climb towers, and they did this 1,500-foot tower rescue video, which is super cool, and it'll make people safer. But like we found in those endeavors, it like helped us overcome anxiety, and then like freed us to think about life in another way. So that's kind of the stuff. I'm not suggesting you guys have a similar path or journey in any way, shape, or form. But
no, I think you're right. And I can relate to, you know, your struggles and your growth. I think that we panic, you know, our minds are always going, and you have a tendency to freak out in a situation, and you realize on a trip like that, that there's suffering, that it's going to be uncomfortable, that you're going to get rained on, that you're going to be sleeping on rocks, that your back is going to hurt, that your arm is going to hurt, that you're going to not want to be there at any given time. But when you can realize that it won't last, that that day will end, that this trail, as long as it seems, will eventually end, and that it will pass, then you kind of can get comfortable in this space of suffering. And you can start to remove the anxiety from it, because you're living in this place of suffering, in this place that you're scared, where you're uncomfortable. And then when you're looking at that right in the face, and you're looking at what's causing you anxiety, then it'll eventually just pass as well. And then those moments where you're back home and you're worried about, you know, getting this email written, or, you know, getting this episode of the show out, or, you know, you're worried about what you're going to do next week for work, you know, you can use those skills and realize that, you know, there's a way to get through this without me freaking out right now. Me freaking out and having an anxiety and a panic attack is not going to make this thing go away. So why don't I just take a moment and breathe, realize that this suffering, this anxiety that I'm feeling is going to pass, and it will. It always does.
As long as you apply some action, because you could sit on the trail and just die too.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's a huge sense of accomplishment to achieve something that you didn't think that you could do. I remember when I met Josh, I had hiked through Maine and New Hampshire by myself. Well, I hiked through Maine with my friend, and then I hiked through New Hampshire by myself. And I felt really empowered, like I am accomplishing something that I didn't think that I could do. And then I looked at this map of the Appalachian Trail the next day. And I'd gone 2 inches of what was feet.
Yeah.
And I started to freak out. And actually the next day is when I met Josh. And
that might have been Providence right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the universe, as you guys would probably call it, after I heard about the dead.
Yeah, this is getting deep.
Yeah. Keep going. Keep going. So then you got a friend.
Yeah. So, I mean, at that point, we were able to kind of suffer together and get through it. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like Josh said, he's a very different person, having done a trip like that and having put yourself out of your comfort zone, you know?
Yeah.
I think that that's really important every day, is to do something that makes you a little bit nervous and freaks you out. I mean, today, Josh is going up to Alaska, back to a crab boat in the Bering Sea. He's a cameraman on the Deadliest Catch. And that, for me, you know, I've had a chance to do a little bit of it. Josh has done way more. That would have freaked me out a long time ago. So incrementally, it allows you to be more comfortable in places where you're uncomfortable. And then it just makes the minutia of life just kind of fade away. You know, when you realize that you can do this, when you have confidence, when you can be in a situation and stand up straight and put your shoulders back and say that I'm confident that I can do this, and not second guess yourself, then you can really get through anything. But it is an incremental incline and trajectory. You can't start at the bottom and think that you're going to be able to go to this thing that freaks you out. You have to just step up to it and find comfort in those moments. Realize that it's going to pass, and be comfortable with a little bit of suffering, and then step it up again and try to keep yourself out of a rut. Because I think that that's why we do these trips, why we seek adventure, is so you're not stuck in this state of monotony. I think that can be the driver. These people that you're talking about that don't have a chance to hike the Appalachian Trail, even within that framework, if you're at home doing things like taking a public speaking course, or if you feel like you're compelled to do politics, or there's, you know, a challenge, you always need to challenge yourself. And I think that's the biggest thing that these trips have proven to me, is that it is important to do something outside of your comfort zone. Otherwise, you're not going to grow, you're not going to stay relevant, and you're not going to become better.
It goes like against our DNA, I think. Like I've got a friend, a famous combatives instructor named Paul Sharp, and he tells students, you're only here today, like us 3 men are only here today because our ancestors sharpened sticks and stuck those sticks into furry things that wanted to kill them.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's like in our DNA, and we suppress that. Not that we need to be violent, but we like suppress that and subdue that to, you know, now this is me sticking sticks into furry things. I play with papers and keys, and there's like that angst. I think some people, I got family members that are A-okay with that monotony of life. Like that gives them a comfort. Maybe that was the guy that was the goat milker, you know, but not the guy that figured out how to get across the English Channel or
Yeah.
whatever the thing was.
Yeah,
You know
I
what
think
I'm saying?
it's a spectrum of people. Like some people are really comfortable with routine and they need that kind of structure. You know, we both work in television now, and you could either be the person that goes out in the field or you can be the person that edits. And both of us like to go out in the field. We like to explore. We like to see new horizons. We like to go to dangerous places and challenge ourselves. But there are other individuals who I admire a lot because I can't do it, who like the control of being in an edit suite, knowing that everything around them, they can move and that there's order around them. And we kind of like to exist in a space of more chaos. Yeah. But I think it's a spectrum for finding what makes you happy, what makes you feel fulfilled. The problem is when you're in a space where you don't feel fulfilled and you don't feel challenged, and then you start to have regret. And I think that could be a life wasted. As long as, you know, if you're in a controlled space and that brings you joy, then go with it, you know?
Regret's a bitch.
Totally.
I just finished a 6-month college course. I was redoing the EMT program I did 20 years ago because our company teaches some of that. And I wanted to challenge myself. And it just finished yesterday. I took the final and came home, and I was talking to my wife, and I said, I kind of bummed. Like, because it was a big chunk of time. I was burning up like 20 hours a week of studying and going to the local college and stuff, and it's like gone. And she's like, well, sign up for something else. I can, but I don't need to like fill myself up. But I was talking to a brother-in-law of mine, and he's totally in that monotony. What did you call it a minute ago? You said the minutia of life, like get up, read the paper, drop the kids off at school, drink coffee, get dressed, and then now it's dinner time, a couple beers, go to bed, and it's like next thing you know, 8 years, 10 years has gone by. This used to all be black. Felt like it the other day.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think it happens to a lot of people, and I've experienced it in my own life, you know, and we're lucky enough to have kind of created jobs for ourselves where we get to go to these frontiers still, and you know, go to crazy places like Antarctica or the Bering Sea or the Democratic Republic of Congo. And
so anybody ever say to you, must be nice, Josh, must be nice to hang out with the crew on Deadliest Catch. It must be nice to go to all these cool places. You guys ever hear that?
Yeah, I love the one. I joke about it a lot. It's like, man, you got it figured out. They'll say that. You really got it figured out, especially if I'm back home on like vacation or Christmas. And I laugh at that. And if I'm with JJ or another friend and we're out in the wilderness suffering on some trip, you know, I'll joke, I'll look over and be like, we really got it figured out right now. No, isn't this great?
Worms crawling out of your butthole.
Like, I can't believe we're just covered in cockroaches and we got to just sleep in this
nutted
pit tonight. We got it figured out.
Must be nice.
People will see our content, like guys that like what we do, and they'll see us shooting guns and at cool places. And I'll occasionally be like 3 a.m. driving on some road in Wyoming home from a trip, like fighting sleeping in a truck stop, you know, curled up in my truck, hoping some truck drivers aren't going to rape me. And that's when I joke to myself, you know, must be nice. And I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's funny
there's
stuff.
some sacrifice, of course.
When you guys finished your trip, I got bummed for you watching the movie. I was like, man, like it's over. Like I always get super excited. You guys probably do too. Like you're going out to sea next week, and you're going. Where'd you say you're going, JJ?
I'm kind of figuring out my next job. Josh is heading up to Dutch Harbor.
Yeah,
you're going back out. So it's probably exciting, right? Like new stuff.
Yeah.
But then like when it's over, it's like, oh, it's over. Like that's how. Although sometimes I get super relieved when something I know is going to be a massive amount of work is completed. But then you like start building up to the next thing. I was bummed out for you guys, like, because I knew, man, they probably talked about this and dreamt about it and drew things out, and now it's over. When you rolled in, and
it's just kind of how life is, isn't it? It just seems to break up into these little chapters, and you're excited and you're disappointed some days, and you're looking forward to the next thing. You tend to kind of see life like that. Or maybe that's just how we think. And
cyclical, like the
time. Totally. Yeah, it was weird. I remember hiking the Appalachian Trail, and like you said, you're building towards this destination, this goal that you're driving towards, and it means everything to you. It's all that you think about. You think about it every day. You're going to this one thing. It is what you need to accomplish. And then you do it, and then you kind of question, like, what's my meaning now? You know, what's my why now? What do I need to be doing next? And I've actually gone into like low-level depressive states, I would say, because we do these. Yeah. And it's also wintertime generally when we finish, you know, so it's dark and it's cold and you're not with your friend anymore. Like, we go separate ways. So there, yeah, highs and lows for sure.
I used to, not to keep talking, I used to get into one of those depressive states, like after some big push to get something done. And I'd get mad at myself. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, you just completed this thing. And now I recognize it for what it is. Your brain and body are smoked. Like, it's telling me, go lay on the couch and watch Amazon or Netflix and, you know, drink some IPAs and take long naps and light fires. And that's what I do now. Like, I just got home. My voice is groggy. Not like stuff you do, but I was 5 days on the road and I'm constantly on for 20 hours at a time, sleeping for like 4 hours, and I'm still smoked. And now I'll leave like a week or two open on my calendar after trips like that. And I just, I go get big, fat, greasy cheeseburgers in town while my wife's at work, and I come home and slam my belt off and go to bed, you know?
That's amazing. That's what it's all about. That's how you grow. You know, you have to stress yourself. Like, if you're lifting weights or if you're trying to run faster, you need to increase the load. You increase the load. But if you're not recovering, if you're not letting your mind absorb all the lessons that you've just taken in and just going right into the next, then you're going to stress yourself out. And, you know, we saw it on the Appalachian Trail. There are people that would just try to power through it. And we would generally try to take a day off every 7th day or something like that. You know, take a day where we're at least like doing a half day or reducing miles or going into a town and getting resupplies. And you need that. You need that chance to absorb the lessons that you just took in, that increased load that you just took on, and then you can create growth. So when you're coming back from your road trip and you're just laying back on the couch, and by not worrying about it and being in a state of anxiety, those little epiphanies that you maybe didn't realize at the time as they were happening, they start to settle in when you're not anxious about it. And then you just get jazzed to go out again. You know, if you come back and you got to turn around 24 hours later and just turn and burn and go, then you're going to resent it. You're like, oh, I got to go do this again.
Yeah. It's like appreciating the whole cycle of the tide or of the wave. Like, it's all part of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you guys literally rode on a river of poo.
Yeah, I can bring that up.
River of poo. That was actually, it's in quotes. The most memorable scene in Go Ganges is Kelley and Thomas rowing on a literal river of poo. That's what I've got written here.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah, well, we went for a run this morning before we talked to you, and we were talking about these various films we've made. We've done 4 projects together. We spent a year of our lives in a tent-like situation, like out in the woods.
That's pretty cool.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's amazing.
Like prison cellmates.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We got to watch out at night so you don't get shanked.
We really got it figured out, don't we? Floating down this river of poo.
There they are, those guys.
We got it figured
Must
out.
be
right
nice.
But,
so you guys went to India.
Yeah, we finished our paddle to Seattle, and then we wanted to have another adventure. And we thought, at the time, the idea was, you know, we celebrated a beautiful wilderness environment, kayaking.
I was going to say pristine ocean.
Yeah.
To the river of fecal matter.
Shithole, right.
Yeah.
So could you have an adventure like that in a place that's polluted? You know, we wanted to show like that you could still have an adventure in a place that used to be pristine. And isn't it kind of a bummer that we've done this to our wild spaces? However, I mean, it killed us. It really killed us. We got dysentery several times, lung infection. We had a cameraman with us. He couldn't walk by the end of it. He had
what happened to him?
It was dysentery. Yeah,
okay.
He just couldn't keep fluids or anything in.
So what were you guys doing for water? Were you purifying out of the river?
No, we were able to buy bottled water, or, you know, when the river section, we had big 5-gallon jugs.
Okay.
That were supposed to be, you know, filtered, but
supposed to be, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how far did you go on the river there?
It was
The whole length of it?
No, it was
We traveled the full length of the river. We wanted to travel the full length of the river, and then we did some research and realized that it starts at like 13,000 feet, and no one has ever actually paddled down the whitewater section.
yeah, probably impossible.
So we hiked up to that part. Then we got down to where it was flatter, and then
It was probably beautiful up there.
Oh,
stunning.
yeah.
We saw the glacier melting at the source of the Ganges, and we dipped in there. I think we swam in the river 3 or 4 times, and you basically you're the first polluter at that point.
Uh-huh.
And then it just gets grosser and grosser and grosser. And then we got a rickshaw.
We did a cycle rickshaw because the river was actually this is just like 1 week after the monsoon basically ended in India, and the river was too dry to float where it came out of the mountains at the Himalayas.
Interesting.
Because it gets used for irrigation. There's just wasn't raining a lot. So we decided on a cycle rickshaw, which was pretty interesting on those narrow roads, battling it out with other cars.
Like a bike with like a big adult tricycle with a bench in the back that seats 2 people. And
so one of you drive and you had all your gear and crap in there?
And the cameraman
awesome.
Too.
It was awesome.
There were 3 of us.
I think we would do 1 hour. We do 1 hour intervals. Like one of us would hop on, like, all right, my hour's coming up. All right, stretch out, eat some sugar biscuits or whatever we had from the store.
But it was a pedal. It was a pedal bike.
Single speed pedal bike.
No gears.
Yeah. And fortunately, most of the terrain was flat because it was in the Gangetic Plain. But yeah, it was awesome actually. And people did not expect to see some Westerners cruising through these rinky-dink villages on a tricycle.
Did anybody with you speak languages?
No, we were totally,
fish out of water.
Yeah, we were green, fish out of water. But Hindi and, India, a lot of their words are derived from English languages at this point. So you could communicate the basic things like, I need some food, I need some water, a place to stay.
We learned this word malega, which means like possible. It's like, is this possible? So we'd say malega, and then we'd maybe put our hands together, put it by our ear, like you're going to go to sleep.
Possible for me to sleep here?
Can I sleep? Or you'd point to when you have to go to the bathroom and be like, malega? I remember one time I had to malega. I had to take I had to take an early morning malega, and I really had to go.
This just became a word that you described everything with.
Yeah. So I ate a bunch of curry the night before, and sure enough, I need to malega sunrise, and we're sleeping in this like truck stop. It was like a truck stop, basically.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't enclosed. It was a roof. It was
any of our Hindu-speaking friends. We're not being disrespectful. We're just having fun.
Yeah. No, it's true.
I know you're not. Yeah.
No, definitely. We have ultimate respect for the places that we go and the spots that we went to. But we ended up sleeping on a table that night. And I woke up in the morning and I'm like, hey, I really have to use the bathroom. Is that Malega? And he took me over to the side of the road, and he pointed on the side of the highway down at the ground, and he put a flashlight on me, and he just said, okay, this is where you take your poo. It's right on the side of the highway. Yeah. And he stood there with a flashlight, and he watched me do it.
It was the spot.
He wanted
eye contact.
The whole
time. You really got it figured out.
You approve?
Yeah. No, it was a crazy trip. And we were talking about this morning. By the end of that trip, we were really almost close to death, as I said. And it was actually kind of sad, where at the end of the paddle to Seattle, we're excited. We accomplished this great thing. We had these breakthroughs that made us stronger and smarter. And that trip, because it was such a brutal environment, because the river was so polluted and we got so sick, it just tore us apart. And in terms of
how long was this one, north to south? How long did you do that?
2 months. I think 2 months. We spent 2 months following the river by different modes of transportation.
Okay. I interrupted you. So you 2 months in, you're almost done. You're beat to death.
Yeah.
Dysentery and
in terms of like this idea of the hero's quest of coming out stronger on the other side, like the film at the end of it, we're just emaciated and we're excited to be done. And, we kind of hated the whole like we loved it. I'd say it personally, like I loved it, but like I was incredibly glad to be done, and I was a little disheartened about the state of everything after just seeing the world and this beautiful river just turn into a state of chaos. Versus
that pisses me off when I'm somewhere where there's not supposed to be our waste, and then you're like, and there's some asshole threw his Dorito wrapper on the ground, you know, like.
Yeah, it's that on steroids on the Ganges River.
I'm sure. It says a lot about people when they. I'm not a big environmentalist or anything, but I really enjoy like the clean earth and good water and things of that nature. It's very aggravating how much waste we make.
Yeah.
Just like, and people. I know it's just me and my family using 68 bottled water containers a week. So like, what's 68, you know, in the whole world? People don't think about how they it can collectively impact the world.
Yeah.
If the rest of them aren't going to do it, I shouldn't have to either. And it's very convenient for me to have all of this shit individually wrapped. Mm-hmm. You stop at like a fast food place, which I don't care for, and get like a salad, and it's like a plastic clamshell with the salad, the plastic fork, little rippy things with crap dressing in them. Then they put all that in a bag, and they put more shit in the bag. You know, it's like, and a paper receipt so you can eat a little tiny bit of shitty salad.
Yeah, weird. It is weird, and that's a lot of discussions go that direction. Like, what do we do as a human race when that's our daily life? It's just consumption, right? Convenience, and essentially kind of destruction of the planet.
But on the other hand, we all can't have goats. Right? We can't all live like that. Like, to have the population we have to have commercial farming and trucks running food all over the country, because we can't sustain the amount of living creatures we have with small homesteads either.
Yeah, there's got to be, I'm sure there's no right or wrong answer to it. I think just as individuals, we need to decide what we value, and,
Soylent
food.
Green.
Yeah, Soylent Green. I'm going to start eating people. Eventually, that's going to happen, right?
There's a lot of people,
It's weird.
It's really the only solution is to start eating other people. No.
That's a movie for you young men that don't remember or have never seen it. Look it up. Charlton Heston. Final scene. Soylent Green is people.
Brilliant. Yeah.
It'll happen. So you guys both have fished on or filmed on Deadliest Catch on the fishing boats, crabbing boats.
Yeah.
That's like special operations film work.
It really is. Yeah.
How do you get vetted for that?
It's sink or swim.
Is it like a know a guy who knows a guy to is there a pool of dudes like, hey, I can't make it this next season, call Bob, call John?
Yeah, a lot of it's word of mouth and just knowing somebody, and then having the desire to do it. Even just having any experience.
Excuse me.
Having any experience on the ocean is really helpful, because a lot of people get seasick. Most people get seasick their first time, and you have to just kind of get over it. So being comfortable. Is there one
camera guy per boat too?
2 camera guys per boat. One is based in the wheelhouse and stays mostly dry. And the other is based on the deck of the boat with the deckhands, and is often just very wet. So you work together, you do all audio, you run all basically they're like surveillance style cameras. And you work on story with just that one other person. It's great.
So you guys, when you come back to port, you've got all your data cards and memory stuff, and you take it off and hand it off to the editor. And
we've got like a 8 or 16 terabyte cloned hard drive. There's 2 of those on each boat, and you pass one off, and you get one empty, and you throw the lines, and you go back out and do it again.
Is it as brutal as it looks to the viewer, or do you guys just make it?
It's more brutal than you could imagine. It's definitely. I went into it the first time I did it, it was after I'd done the Appalachian Trails, after I'd paddled the Seattles, after I went to India and suffered over there. And And I value suffering. I enjoy those moments. You tend to learn the most about yourself. But going on to Deadliest Catch and working on deck of a crab boat was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. And I knew
they earn their money.
Yeah, they earn their money. And being a camera person too, you know, it's not the same. You know, you're not throwing pots around, but you're basically working the same hours. But you're tasked with, you know, turning it into a coherent story too. These guys, they're working hard, but in a sense, they can kind of just zone out, and they're going through the same motions day in and day out.
That's pretty cool
tough.
how you show that, like, you guys follow, like, and I know this isn't what we're talking about, but it's pretty cool from a filmmaking standpoint. You got, what, 5, 6, 7 boats. So you got 10, 12 film guys out there all having this freelance ability to pick the guys on the boat and kind of craft it into something that the end user on cable television will want to watch. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's what's pretty unique about it, is that there is just 2 people on each, 2 camera guys on each boat. And the stories, you can't fake it. You can't. So you're getting a real story every time. And and you can bring your own personality into it, because it is that verite style where the camera guy is kind of, you know, is interacting with these people, and they don't hide that from the viewer. And I appreciate that. It's very honest storytelling, even though we suffer a lot out there. It feels real, and I appreciate it for that.
Which boat has the best food?
Ooh, none of them.
Well,
none of them. They're all eating garbage. You guys will have to come to one of our events. We are food snobs.
Good. Yeah, that's what we need. That's what you should invite some crab captains over. Show them what you do.
Well, I will say the Wizard, the past few years, has had a cook on there that goes organic when he can. And the Wizard's had some pretty good food. It hasn't always been the case. They used to be the worst for food, you know, the Hot Pockets and the microwavables. But
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I'd be like, let me out.
Oh my God. I remember.
Call the helo.
That happens too. Yeah. That happens every year, where somebody, you know, they may
a camera guy tanks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It happens a lot.
Yeah. Not helicoptered out, but sometimes the boat will have to turn around, which is a big inconvenience, you know, when they're burning.
Because the guy just pushes out.
Yeah. Well, they say they
get seasickness. You know, I'd say shut up.
Yeah.
They just can't take it. They can't wait to get to the point where they overcome it.
Yeah, and some people don't overcome it. You know, if it doesn't go away after 3 days and they still can't hold fluids, it can get to a dangerous. There's some guys that have gotten to that point, and the boats had to turn around. So, and some people just make it through the trip, and they just get off the boat, their bags packed, and they're just like, sorry, not for me. Later.
Do you guys have women? I mean, you're traveling all over, or I shouldn't assume your sexual preferences. Do you have significant others?
I do not currently have a significant other.
Traveling as much. What's that?
I'm married. My wife is, she's down there somewhere, I think.
As much as you guys travel, I'm sure that's hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
Yeah. I mean, I would say for me, Kate, I've been with her for 10 years now. And when I met her, I had a date with her. Josh was actually, we ran into him. So he was on my first date with my wife.
Oh, hey, what are you guys doing here?
Hey.
But
this is my camping buddy.
This is my camping. You got to meet him. You know, if you're cool with him, then you should be good with me. Yeah. But we were going to go paddle down the Ganges River. So I had 2 dates with my wife. And then we went to India for 3 months. And I went down this trip, and I kept in contact with her every day through emails or texts or whatever it was. So, you know, she kind of learned early on that this guy likes to do these things, and he likes to be out there, and she's been okay with it. And then whenever I can bring her along, I like to show her, because we lead these lives, and, you know, a lot of the people that are influencers or social media, or, you know, if you're big in that world, then you're showing your best self, right? You're only showing the glamorous moments. And when we post stuff, people think, oh yeah, must be nice. You guys have such a glamorous life. So what I've started to do is bring my wife on a trip. Like if I can bring in another person, I'll bring her. So we'll go and we'll drop into a country and she'll see that like I'm sweating and carrying camera equipment, and like, no, the girls aren't like pouring themselves over us. It's actually like the dudes that come up to you being like, what kind of camera you got there? You know, like that's the kind of person that's going to come up to you. So I think just showing them that world and showing them that passion is really important. And then being there for her. When I come home from a trip, I used to be so jacked up about everything that I learned and all this awesome stuff. And my next trip's coming up and then I'm going to be going here. And she's like, but you're here. Why are you talking about that? Yeah. So sometimes I come home and I don't even talk about the trip I just came from. Unless she has questions and wants to hear about it, I'm here. I'm with you right now.
How many countries you guys been to collectively, do you know, or even individually? Do you guys remember?
Gosh, my list isn't as long as JJ's. I've probably only been to 12 countries.
Okay.
JJ's, I don't know. God, every country? Are you there yet?
I think 111.
Holy shit.
Back. Yeah. Yeah. I'll just because of the jobs I've been doing, you know, after we did our trips, I've really stayed in as a producer and working, doing a lot of stories for National Geographic, Discovery Channel, Travel Channel, and just stayed pretty busy. I do an international trip every 3 weeks, I would say.
Wow.
And, you know, working on the Deadliest Catch, you have to be kind of a mercenary of television. You have to be able to know how to do good sound. You have to be able to know how to hold a camera and get a good angle. You know, those guys get nominated for cinematography Emmys every year because, you know, they're filming and they're making it look good in these challenging situations. And you have to know, as your brain is shaken up and you're completely seasick, you have to put a story together with a beginning, middle, and end. So if you can specialize and be comfortable in that world, then there's a place for you in the filmmaking community in this kind of adventure storytelling space where, you know, I'm going to St. Helena Island in February, which is
Where's that?
It's one of the Ascension Islands. It's off of Africa, about 500 miles. So you have to fly all the way to like South Africa and then fly back. And I'm going there for this collection of,
is it in the Atlantic or the other side?
it's in the Atlantic. Yeah.
Okay.
So you go to Africa and then you kind of come back in the halfway point. It's where they put Napoleon. It's like in the middle of nowhere.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But they
That
can only
sounds
send,
cool.
it's amazing, but it's so expensive to get there that they can't send a full camera crew. I mean, you think of sound, it's usually its own person. Camera, it's usually its own team. And then producer, it's usually its own team. If they can only send one person for financial reasons and you can do all those things, then you've found your own niche. And, you know, that's really what we've been able to develop from paddling from Alaska to Seattle is we did it all. You know, I happened to host a show on the Travel Channel. So we were telling stories in front of the camera, we were holding the camera, and we were carrying the camera, and we were doing our own sound. So if you're
I could learn a lot from you guys, but I'm not in the same space.
Yeah.
But I do that. I've got a couple Pelican cases with audio and tripods and all that crap in it. And sometimes when I'm on the road, like I might go do a gig and you guys, one of you might be where I'm at. And I'll say, hey, let's get together and film something. I'll run to your office and I'm running in circles, you know, checking camera angles and making sure your batteries didn't die on your mic and all that jazz. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Must be nice.
Must be nice.
And then if I screw up and forget something, then I get home and I give it all to Drew, our master editor, and he's like, there was no card in it or something.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Well, we've made those mistakes for sure before, many different times. It's just like it's hours, you know. We've been doing this for 15 years almost, and you just like with time, you just kind of figure it out. And we still make mistakes. It's part of it. It's how you learn. I think it's important to like watch what you do. You know, watch your content. If you're a content creator, edit yourself or at least watch it and figure out like, here's where I really messed up or this worked really well. Like when we were making our Paddle to Seattle, we'd look at the monitor every night and we'd watch what we shot and we'd listen to it and we'd be like, oh shoot, you know, like you can't have the microphone.
Do better tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you guys have solar chargers?
We did.
We did have a solar charger, and a battery, a big battery pack that we could plug in to the solar charger, or we could plug it in when we were in town every, 10 days or whatever.
And charge that big monster battery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where's those kayaks now?
I think there's somewhere in Puget Sound. A fella in the Seattle area bought them from us, Craigslist at the end of the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sold them?
I know.
Would you go?
We were broke, dude. We didn't have. we could barely afford to fly out of Seattle. I remember JJ flew back to Minneapolis, and I think he was living with a friend of a friend, someone that basically just took him in. And what was your job that winter? You were like a telemarketer?
I was working in Minneapolis in Bloomington by the Mall of America in a call center, answering calls and telling people about their biometrics, people that had to take these like health tests for their work.
We were so poor.
But it was, yeah, like couldn't.
I love these stories.
I was selling old comic books. I went back to Pennsylvania for a couple months that winter. And I remember going, like, just digging through stuff, looking at old baseball cards and be like, oh, Sarah, my sister, could you give me a ride to the comic book store? I need some money, $20.
Oh, you were taking your books to go basically pawn them to get some money.
I was pawning things. Yeah.
I need money for cigs and Yoo-hoo.
Exactly. Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Funny. I like that though, because it's again, back to this idea of having to work very hard to get somewhere. I don't want to talk about your guys' finances, but I'm assuming you both can not sell comic books and sell your boats now if you need to.
Yeah, doing okay, I guess.
That's a good thing.
And yeah, you know, people have told us like you sell the kayaks, it's like shooting your horse. But I also believe in like, you know, looking towards the next adventure and realizing that served you and it brought you to an amazing place and not letting your stuff own you. I think it'd be awesome to have that boat, but I would probably use it maybe a couple of times a year, if that. And, you know, where I'm living now, I don't really have space for it. And it might be easier if I'm going to do a paddling trip to get a boat there, or if I want to do another big trip to figure out what I'm going to need for that specific expedition and gear something tailor-made for that. So yeah, it's sad to lose those boats that Josh spent months making. And, you know, I just watched him make from a distance and drank coffee. But at the end of the day, you know, they served their purpose and we moved on to the next.
Maybe like when you're 60, you'll whip out another batch, and this time you'll not puss out, and you'll go all the way to like LA or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We did do the whole Inside Passage, minus going to Olympia.
I was joking about pussing out. You know that. You looked at me like I want to punch you.
I mean,
it sounds like a challenge. We're gonna have to go.
I think you could try it
next summer. We were worried someone would call us.
Nobody's called us out until now. We just gave up. That was our plan.
Do you hear it all the time?
We were
all the way to Cabo. All the way to Cabo.
Yeah. Well, it was Paddle to Antarctica was the working title.
Oh God.
We kept dialing it back. Then it was, you know, Paddle to South America, Paddle to Central America, Mexico was one of the titles, and then, you know, we're just like,
how about Seattle?
Fuck it.
I have a really good friend of mine. Him and his brother was an Army Ranger, to raise some money for a charity. Took a couple of enduros, a Kawasaki and a Suzuki, from here near Chicago, and they rode to the tip of Tierra del Fuego. Ooh. And it took them. They got hung up in like Paraguay with some legal stuff, like taking the bikes from country to country, and one of the bikes blew up. And they were there for like, it took them like 6 months to get there, but they were zigzagging. I think they did over 20,000 miles on that trip. Anyway, long and the short of it, they finally finished it. They got all this footage and they didn't really know what to do with it. But like the same kind of life-changing year-long experience. So now he wants to do that again, except start farther north and go back down there.
Yeah, it's very doable. We did a biking trip once upon a time. Our first film, actually, in between the Appalachian Trail and Paddle to Seattle, we biked
on bicycles.
Yeah, like pedal bikes from the bottom of Alaska up to the top to Prudhoe Bay, where there's an oil drilling operation up there. We biked all the way up there, and we met some people that were doing a bike trip, and they were starting up there, and they were going to go all the way down to Tierra del Fuego.
Now you guys, now you brought that story up. That was the pipeline that you rode along. Right?
Yeah.
That's like 1,300 miles.
Yeah, I guess it. Yeah, it was about.
Every time you tell one of these stories, it's pretty incredulous. Like I walked 8 miles yesterday. So says my GPS watch. 1,300 miles here, 1,500 miles there. I know. I'm just saying though. Like that's. Yes. I can't just leave my life. Must be nice to be able to do that, but I can't, and go on these great adventures. But that's like another like one in a lifetime story. And you guys just keep dropping another one. Like, oh, remember that one time that we rode bicycles across the largest state in the United States? What What did you do that for?
Just to explore. You know, the idea, I'd been working in Alaska 2 years at that point. JJ had been up there 4 summers. And it was just like, but we were in the same town, you know, working the tourist industry, kayaking. And it was, hey, what if we just took the summer off and explored the rest of Alaska? And there's all these cool roads, you know, looking at the routes, there's a dirt road that goes over here, and there's this little village over here.
Did you have like the side saddles on your bikes, the bags?
Yeah.
How did you get food up there? Unlike the Appalachian, there's not a lot of spots to ship things to, is there?
No, we did have some dehydrated food.
Yeah, it was like a bear keg that we kept on the back of just above the back tire, so we could put food in there. I think we had 1 or 2 of those.
Yeah,
and there were supplies. I mean, it only took us a month,
right? Because even, you know, on a bicycle, you can do, if you had to, you can do 100 miles, and most of the towns you could get to in 2 or 3 days. So
how many miles a day were you cranking?
Usually like 50 or 60. I think we had one day where we hit 100, but it's tough. You know, the roads a lot of it was gravel the way we went, and a lot of big hills. Yeah,
it was remote, and
another
especially
cool
once
story.
North of Fairbanks, it turns into a dirt road, and basically the reason the road exists is for massive semi trucks, and they'll stack together 3 trailers sometimes, and a semi tractor pulling 3 trailers, and they'll rage 60.
So you guys hear these and probably get the heck off the road.
Yeah, and luckily they actually slowed down for us, because they're flinging rocks, and they would kill us. One of those rocks would kill us, the speed they're going past. So they'd slow down, and the mosquitoes were otherworldly.
Yeah.
Did you film this one?
Yeah.
Or was this just for you guys?
We filmed that one, yeah.
It's our first ever film.
Is it published somewhere that I can watch it tonight while I'm drinking beer?
I think so, yeah.
It's called Pedal to the Midnight Sun. Yeah, it's out there.
It was cool, yeah. That was JJ's idea, was to film it. I think he was a senior in college at University of Minnesota, Duluth. And we were going to do this trip anyway. And JJ's like, what if we bring along cameras? I'll make it my senior project. And it's just like, yeah, whatever. Let's bring some cameras. And we each had a little handy cam thing. It was shot in 4:3. It was before HD. We shot everything on these little mini tapes. And it got turned into a film.
So I got to watch that on my big screen all cropped and stupid.
Yeah.
I think that,
exactly.
Wasn't it like 16:9 within standard definition? I think it's like anamorphic. Now we're getting super nerdy, but I think it is anamorphic.
I'm going to have to Google some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So do 2 things for me. I've had you guys for a long time, and I don't want to take up your whole day, and I appreciate it. Pedal to the Midnight Sun, Paddle to Seattle. What are some other films that people can look you guys up or see your work? Of course, now every time I watch Deadliest Catch, I'm going to wonder which boat is he on.
Yeah, check it out.
You might want to watch one of the earlier seasons. One of the camera guys slams his ribs into the side of the boat, and the camera goes flying into the Pacific Ocean, into the Bering Sea. And you might recognize the person that lost the camera on their first day on the job.
Yeah, there is that. That made air. My first storm.
So you're talking 10 years ago.
Well, this was it would have been 7 years ago.
How long's that show been on?
Oh, a long time.
Season 16 this year.
It's been on a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
So how much did that cost? What was that mistake? 20 grand?
It's probably about 10 grand back then with the cameras we were using.
Okay.
But yeah, I was that guy.
So you can see Josh behind the scenes. We did the film Go Ganges. That's our India trip.
That's the one. Okay, Go Ganges.
Something kind of exciting. I'm hosting a new series on the Travel Channel called Lost in the Wild, and it airs this December 29th on the Travel Channel at 10 p.m. in your time zone. It's 8 episodes, and we look at stories of people that went into the wild and they disappeared. These are cold cases from not that long ago. We pick up where investigators left off. We do depositions with police officers, with family members. We try to find out what happened to these people.
That's eerie.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy.
Pretty awesome.
A lot of countries want to bury a missing person case, especially if it happens in the wild, because they don't want a lot of immediate attention or the embassy coming in and poking around. So it's just easy to say they fell off that bridge and they went down the river. But a lot of times you go there and you start digging stuff up and you find out there's a lot more complexity to the story. So we went all over the world. We went down Panama, we went up in the Himalayas, we're in the Galapagos Islands, Philippines, Malaysia, Colorado, and it's a cool series. So love it.
Did you guys dig anything up that might help find somebody?
Yeah, we actually did. We got never before heard recordings of possible murderers. We interviewed some key suspects in cases. And a lot of these investigations that are done in these developing countries are done very poorly. So we got on the record the police officer's statement, the key witness's statement, and we're actually talking to these people. And the way that the series is told, me and my co-host Kinga, who's an investigator, we're on the ground going to these wild, remote places. And then throughout the journey, you're hearing these interviews that we did with key witnesses. So it's a cool series. I'm excited about it, proud of it. And that's coming out December 29th on the Travel Channel. It's going to be awesome.
What's next for you, Joshua?
Going to work. I fly out of Lehigh Valley Christmas Day, and I'll be on a crab boat 2 days after that.
How long are you out there? How long is one of those filming seasons?
This will probably be, at least 60 days. I would bet, 2 months or more.
He'll go
what do you do? I'm sorry.
Oh, he'll go up around Christmas, and sometimes he won't get done till March.
Yeah.
What do you do after that?
I live it's kind of different life, I guess, in Alaska. I've got a piece of property up there recently, and I'm just building a little off the grid kind of homestead kind of lifestyle up there. And I'll work if the right job pops up, but a lot of my time is just spent at home, kind of doing little construction projects and playing outside. I love where I live in Alaska, and I spend a lot of time in the mountains and on the ocean.
I love it. I appreciate your guys' time. Do me one more favor. Take as long as you need, but not too long, because I just don't want you to take up any more of your free time. If the people listening, one of you can start, never saw you again, never crossed your path in person, what would you leave them with?
What do you think, bud?
I don't know.
I mean, I would say challenge yourself. What we were talking about earlier. See the world from somebody else's perspective. Get a chance to be exposed to other cultures, other ideas, other languages, because you really realize at the end of the day that we're all pretty similar, that there are some polarizing figures that are, out there in the world with a big megaphone, but actually, collectively as a human species, we've relied on each other. We've lost the ability to fight, to kill something with our face, and we've lost the ability to be able to survive. And we've moved forward with these big brains that we have, and we've done it through cooperation. So I think there's just so much value in getting out and seeing the world. And there's not going to be everybody that you get along with, but I think it's just going to make you a wiser person. You can go to school, and sure, I think there's value in that, but I think the greatest value that you can get is going out there and experiencing the world and traveling and challenging yourself.
I dig it. How about you, Josh? So I stumble out of the woods into your homestead. You feed me for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
We have lots of cool talks around your hearth that you made out of rocks that you pulled out of the side of the mountain. Sounds cool.
I'm all about, just simplification.
You got weird fermented shit in mason jars that you're letting me eat.
You've seen my place.
He's that guy.
That's me.
I've been there.
I'm like, I don't even have electricity. I've got a couple little
dog-eared books all stacked up somewhere.
Yeah, I'm all about just simplifying, at least this stage in my life, and I find that really valuable. Just to quiet down the world. The world can be pretty loud right now, and that's why I really value the natural wild landscapes. And the more time I spend in those, the more I want to go back, and the longer I want to take the next trip. So if I could offer advice to anybody, I would say, find your connection to the natural world and, appreciate it while you got it.
Those guys like Thoreau and Emerson kind of knew a thing, didn't they?
They sure did.
Yeah. I appreciate your time, dudes. It means a lot that you shared some of your pretty amazing life stories. I'm sure every time you guys are at like a cocktail party or wherever, people are always like eating up your stories. What'd you do now? Tell me about the the last thing, right? I'm sure that happens.
Yeah, they're like, you got it figured out, man.
Must be nice.
Must be nice. I appreciate it. If you guys need anything from us, please do let me know. I will not be paddling on any poo rivers with you, but I will hold the flashlight and make eye contact if you do.
Please. Yeah. Thank you. We love it. We don't get a chance to get together that often anymore. So this is really meaningful. It just worked out that the day we were going to meet, Josh is here. And I love getting your perspective and your story and being introduced to your world. So it was awesome.
So I got to say, the only reason that I got a hold of you was when I started Google searching, I found contact information for you. I didn't find any for Josh.
I just happened to be here. I flew in last night.
Yeah, he messaged me and said Josh is going to be here. I said, yeah, that's awesome. Let's do this together. I think it was a great talk. Yeah. You guys that viewed, go check out their content. Look up these different shows: Pedal to the Midnight Sun, Go Ganges, and then the show on the Travel Channel, Lost in the Wild, which sounds like it's going to be pretty darn good.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. This is Mickey with CarryTrainer and the Higher Line Podcast. If you have not subscribed to the stuff that we're posting, please do. Tell somebody you love them, and don't be a dickhead, because nobody likes a dickhead.
Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@CarryTrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com.